Salam alaikum, girl bosses. Who up wormin' day shepherd? Who up shepherdin' day worm to worm shepherd? It's time to worm our way into a shepherd. The shepherd's name, first name worm, last name shepherd. We last heard from Worm Shepherd, I think a few months ago. The song was The Frozen Lake Part 2. Part two. How exciting. Really cool song, really unique song. And you know, I like unique. So right now, Worm Shepherd, they're just a two-piece right now. So it's Devin and Trey doing all the instrumentals. That poor man. Trey, if you actually have seen Of Sulfur recently, he was the guitarist with Hair. He was throwing in some extra guitars for their live shows. Killed it, and you know, I hope he does it in the future. But yeah, I talked to him. This is why I'm bringing it up at the Chelsea Grin headliner. And he brought up that he's been grinding on these songs. He busted his ass. So you better listen up, fella. You better listen. He worked really hard on these. But yeah, love these guys. Devin actually featured on the Sunscourge EP I dropped back in March. Deathblight Chalice, the opening track, super black metal. Check it out. If you wouldn't mind. Before we get into it, would also appreciate if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. All my social media links and music are in the description below. Let's get into this Worm Shepherd. Oh, what does this art look like? And so far, it's panning out to be like real nice. Ooh. Lots of dead lambs on the Unique Leader label. That's new. Oh. Trey, is this the Lorna one? That's really funny. I didn't think it would be this one. Darkest Shore. Okay. It does have the what is it? The Apotheosis flow? It's either Apotheosis or Wrath. That was a lot of movement. Into that hellish dream. I like the switch up with the vocal. It's new. Hey, he's even got like Adam's leads in it too. Trey, you were not joking about it being a Lorna one. Where's it taking us? Hey, I don't think that lamb's gonna be okay. I'm looking. I mean, it's gonna end up in a euro. I'm looking. It's just that's some shawarma right there. Whitechapel. Ooh. Damn. Really good. Is this leading into the next track? It sounds like a transition to me. That's a transition. That's going to transition to the next one. But yeah, I think it's an EP, The Sleeping Sun. Oh, when does that drop? August 18th. August 18th. Oh, that's exciting. That's really exciting stuff. So yeah, Lore, when I was chatting with Trey at that show, he brought up, he's like, sometimes the haters will compare us to Lorna Shore. So instead of, rejecting that, he decided to go all in and write a Lorna inspired track. Just to sort of say, okay, if we sound like Lorna Shore, yeah, sure, and then, fucking send it. That's really funny. But even though, like, obviously there's like the very intentional, Lorna Shore implementations, the necrophagist leads that Adam loves, the Lorna breakdown. But there was also like a lot of nuance there, I think, especially with like Devin's vocals, especially towards the end. There were a lot of switch ups, and just the way in which they structured some of those elements, even some of the breakdowns, they weren't done like quite. They were done in like a Worm Shepherd way, but like conceptually Lorna Shore, where it's like where you have like that particular like style of playing with the leads, but the actual progressions and like the rhythms or the underlying like rhythm guitars underneath the leads were they're more iconically Worm Shepherd. So it felt like. It felt like Worm Shepherd made a Lorna song, which I guess is what happened. I guess that's literally what happened. Yeah, no, that's funny. I didn't think that this would be the first single that would come out. That's really funny. But yeah, this is exciting. I'm curious about the other tracks, because that was definitely a transition into what sounded like a chunky one. And now we have the I wouldn't call it a meme track, but its origins are that of comedy and a little bit of trolling. The Wormy Boys do a little bit of trolling around here, but it's a fucking sick song. It's really cool. I don't think the Frozen Lake is on the upcoming EP. If it is, then for this upcoming cycle, you know, my in the lead is the Frozen Lake Part 2, just because it was just so unique. It was so fucking unique. But I do appreciate that. It does seem like the trend with blackened deathcore, which has been surprising me. I thought it would kind of like, well, I always knew there was a lot of potential for it. I just didn't really know how it'd pan out. I assumed that once like Lorna got big, maybe people would go in the Lorna direction, wear that out, and then they would sort of start exploring other black metal influences other than Demu. You know, some bands have really sent it with the Demo influence, but then they've also taken it to new levels by like a lot of black and deathcore releases that we've been hearing lately, like Mental Cruelty. That's a black metal album. That's a black metal album with breakdowns. It's interesting. Like people are going real. They're sending it with the black metal. Worm Shepherd's no different. They did it on the Frozen Lake. They did it here. Just like. The black metal elements are actually dominating in black and deathcore much more than I thought they would. I really thought people would keep it fairly minimal, or they go like, you know, symphonic blacken and like really dive into the symphonic. But people have been really sending it into the black metal influence much more than I thought. Way more. And I don't think we fully explored the limits of black and deathcore. Unsure if we will, just because, you know, black metal. If you're someone who gets their start in deathcore, you probably haven't gone down the black metal rabbit hole, for better or for worse. But yeah, like we haven't heard like classically, you know, you got your mayhem, you got your mayhem guys, and you got your Demo, and those are the most predominant ones. But you know, we haven't heard Ulver influence. Ulver, who's Ulver? They're like a more folky black metal. Black and folk, that's out of the question. Probably the closest we've got with that is Mental Cruelty. But then their breed, that like when you get into black and folk, there's all sorts of stuff there. There's a lot of room for any blackened deathcore band to really explore, or many routes for a blackened deathcore band to explore, or just, you know, any band with black metal influence. Like there's a lot. There is so much, you know, a whole subgenre just predicated on doing your own thing leads to a lot of diversity. Also a lot of anti-Semitism. Yikes. Yeah, looking at Varg. Why does he have to make good music? Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I'm curious, like, because it's only recently popped off, I feel. You know, you've had your bands that have like had those influences, but they haven't really popped off because of those influences. But I feel like recently, it's really been Lorna Shore like taking things to a new level. I've heard like a bunch of people just say that they like love Lorna Shore. People who I wouldn't have expected to love Lorna Shore based on their listening history. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. But yeah, no, it's popping off in ways that I would have expected. Definitely leaning the symphonic component, I think, is a really big part. But these bands are also putting forward a lot of black metal influence, man, and there's just so much more room. That's the Spark Notes version of what I said. Yeah, I am curious how it manifests. Cradle of Filth, like of Sulfur, they've had like a sort of different side of Demu and a bit of a Cradle of Filth energy to them. What other black metal bands I listen to? Been hearing a little bit of MGLA, mostly in drum work, just in the cymbals. You heard that, or I remember hearing that on The Arrogance of Agony on Mental Cruelty's latest album. That was a switch up from the Demu influence that dominated that album, really sending it into, it was an MGLA deathcore song, 100%. Satyricon, we haven't heard any black and roll deathcore. I don't know if that should happen though. I don't know if that would work, but you know, someone's gonna try it probably. There's a lot of potential, and you know, everyone kind of wants to get into it. But fortunately, even though it's like it's trendy now. It's trendy now. Let's be honest. Everyone's doing black and deathcore, but there's a lot of routes to take, especially when you get into like the subgenres that fuse black metal with something else. Funeral Doom. I fuck with Funeral Doom. Check out Worm, or just like to Spark Notes Funeral Doom. That's like black metal, doom metal, death metal. It's mamma mia. That's some beautiful stuff right there. Bring that into deathcore, that would be mind-blowing, and I think it'd work. I got all sorts of schemes. It's been interesting, you know, writing music with Sunscourge. Music has kind of been ruined for me because I don't casually listen anymore. I'm a very active listener. Like, what are the influences? What are they trying to do? Even like structurally, like what's the snare placement here? It's interesting, but there's so much room. And yeah, I do hope, you know, with this wave of blackened deathcore, people become a little more open to some of the other genres. I think once you start exploring outside of your comfort zone, you kind of keep exploring. Many of you guys know this because I say this. I've said this a few times in the past, but I'm relatively new to deathcore. I've been listening to deathcore since 2019. Got into it with Distant, To the Grave, Whitechapel, Carnifex, Angelmaker. Angelmaker was huge. So I come from a lot of backgrounds. So like listening to deathcore, it's been in a bubble for quite a while, and at most they're bringing some black metal influence, but there's so much potential. If you have your own project, if you're a musician and you're wondering what you want your sound to be, bring in. There are so many other subgenres. Like please explore, because you will make something that no one's made before. Anyways, Worm Shepherd, they're fucking awesome. Who up, Worm, and they shepherd.